Welcome, dear listener. Wherever you are tucked under a warm blanket, or simply winding down from a long day, let us take a slow, peaceful journey through time. Let your breathing soften, your thoughts quiet. Tonight, we walk along the ancient Roman roads. Breathe in. And now, imagine. It is the year 121 BCE. The sun has just begun to rise over the rolling hills of central Italy. A gentle breeze carries the scent of olive groves and distant pine. In the far distance, you hear the soft clatter of iron on stone, a caravan, perhaps, or a legion marching to its next outpost. You open your eyes to see a narrow yet sturdy path stretching ahead of you, laid stone by hands long turned to dust. You are standing upon the Via Appia, one of the oldest and most famous Roman roads. And what's more, it's still here, 2000 years later. The road begins in Rome. To understand how the Romans built roads that still stand today, we must first walk back in time. Back to a Rome that was not yet an empire. It was a republic, young, ambitious, and rapidly expanding. The city of Rome, nestled beside the Tiber River, needed ways to connect to the rest of the Italian peninsula for trade, for war, for rule. And so, in 312 BCE, a man named Appius Claudius Caecus, a Roman censor, proposed a plan that would change the world forever. The first Roman road, the Via Appia, would stretch from Rome to Capua, and later to Brundisium, on the Adriatic coast. It would not be a mere dirt path, but a marvel of engineering, durable, straight, and built to last. This was not just a road. It was the beginning of a network. A symbol of Roman order, strength, and control. The philosophy beneath the stones. The Romans believed in three things when it came to roads: directness, durability, and discipline. Unlike winding medieval paths or natural foot trails, Roman roads followed straight lines, cutting through hills, crossing rivers with bridges, and even digging tunnels through rock if needed. To the Roman mind, the shortest path between 2 points wasn't just efficient, it was a reflection of their values. Strong, unwavering, decisive. And so, Roman engineers, often military men trained in geometry and surveying, would stand at high points, using a tool called the grommer, to align their roads by sight across the land. A grommer looked like a tall vertical pole with 4 arms at right angles, and plumb lines hanging from each. By sighting along these lines, surveyors ensured their path was straight. Even the gods, it seemed, would walk these lines. Digging into the earth. Once the path was chosen, the real work began. It started with digging. Roman workers, often slaves or soldiers, would dig a deep trench along the planned route. This trench was called the fossa. Depending on the region and soil, it could be 1 to 2 meters deep. They didn't just fill it with dirt again. Oh no. Each Roman road was built in layers, like a cake of stone and strength. At the very bottom lay a base layer of large stones, called statumen. These stones acted like a drainage foundation, keeping water from pooling and weakening the road. On top of this came the rudus, a thick layer of crushed stones mixed with lime and clay. Above that, a finer layer called the nucleus, composed of sand, gravel, and mortar, created a smooth platform. And finally, the surface, the summum dorsum, made of large, flat paving stones, carefully cut and fitted together, forming a solid, walkable top. This 4-layer system created a road that was strong, weather-resistant, and self-draining. When rain fell, water would seep through the cracks and drain off to the sides, keeping the path dry. Some roads lasted centuries without needing major repairs. Voices of the builders. As you imagine this process, picture the hundreds of laborers lining the trench. Some with picks and mattocks, breaking the earth. Others carrying baskets of stone, or kneeling to place each slab with care. The clang of hammers. The crunch of gravel underfoot. The soft murmurs in Latin and Greek. Among them might be a legionary engineer of Vitruvius, perhaps, consulting a wax tablet with sketches. He wipes sweat from his brow, checks the alignment with his grommer, and gives a nod. The road will hold. Others chant work songs to pass the time. You smell the dust in the air, sun-baked and sharp. And as evening falls, torches are lit along the half-finished road. They rest. But tomorrow, the stones will march forward again. Mile by mile. To measure progress, the Romans used milestones, literally. Every mil passus, 1,000 paces, roughly 1 Roman mile, about 1.48 kilometers, a stone pillar would be erected. These millenarium stones were carved with details. The name of the emperor or official who commissioned the road. The distance to Rome. And sometimes, poetic inscriptions praising the might of Roman engineering. These milestones weren't just practical. They were declarations. Markers of Roman presence. In fact, the point from which all Roman roads were measured, the Millenarium Aureum, or Golden Milestone, stood in the heart of the Roman Forum. It was said, all roads lead to Rome, and they did. From distant Britannia to the sands of Africa. Roads for war, peace, and everything in between. Roman roads served many purposes. Yes, they allowed the Roman legions to move swiftly across the empire, a crucial advantage in battle. But they also carried traders, pilgrims, farmers, messengers, and families. Imagine a merchant wagon loaded with amphorae of olive oil. A priest in white robes on pilgrimage to a sacred shrine. A patrol of soldiers headed to a frontier outpost. Or a letter from a senator, bouncing gently inside a leather satchel, making its way across a continent. All these lives connected by stone and sweat. The sun has risen higher now, and the Roman road stretches far beyond the fields, into a landscape of gentle hills and winding rivers. As we continue walking, our footsteps fall in rhythm with the memory of thousands of feet that walked before us, traders, soldiers, pilgrims, all connected by this miraculous web of stone. Let us follow the road onward, for the Roman genius didn't stop at laying stone. They bridged rivers, carved through mountains, and engineered the land itself to their design. Where there was no path, they made one. To build a road was to shape the world. Roman engineers didn't avoid obstacles. They solved them. If the land was too steep, they terraced it. If a marsh blocked the way, they drained it. If a mountain stood in their path, they carved a cutting, slicing a trench through solid rock. Sometimes, you may walk along a Roman road and see steep earthen banks to either side. These are remnants of those cuttings, still channeling travelers through hills 2 millennia later. Imagine the sound of hammers striking chisels, the groaning of wooden carts loaded with stone, and always, the quiet discipline of order and routine. This wasn't chaos. This was the rhythm of empire. Bridging the waters. One of Rome's proudest accomplishments was the bridge, the Pons. When the road met a river too wide to ford, Roman engineers built sturdy stone arch bridges, often without mortar, relying instead on gravity, geometry, and flawless craftsmanship. The secret was in the keystone, the center wedge at the top of the arch. Once placed, it locked the other stones into a self-supporting curve. Many of these bridges still stand. Picture the Ponte di Augusto in Narni, Italy, built in the 1st century BCE. Though partly ruined, it still towers nearly 30 meters tall, graceful and strong. Or the Pont du Gard in France, an aqueduct and bridge combined, tiered arches stretching across a lush valley like the bones of a giant. These were not just functional. They were beautiful, harmonizing with the landscape, enduring through time. And beneath them, rivers flowed, unaware of the legacy passing overhead. Roads in the city. Back in Rome, roads were everywhere. Not only major highways like the Via Appia or Via Aurelia, but a dense network of urban paving. City streets were laid with polygonal basalt stones, tough and dark. You can still walk them today in parts of the Roman Forum and Pompeii. Some streets had stepping stones across them, a kind of ancient crosswalk. These let pedestrians cross while avoiding the ruin of water and waste that often flowed along the gutters. Deep ruts carved into the paving show where thousands of cartwheels once rolled. Their silent fossils of motion. Even in ancient cities, Rome was a place in motion. Way stations and rest stops. Along long roads, Romans built way stations called mansions, where travelers could rest, eat, and stable their animals. Nearby were mutations, places to change horses, almost like Roman petrol pumps. Imagine arriving after a long day's journey. The sun setting behind cypress trees. A clay lantern lit near the door. Inside, a warm stew simmers in a bronze pot. You remove your sandals, dust your cloak, and stretch aching legs by the hearth. Roads weren't just stone, they were systems. Networks of service, safety, and movement woven across the empire like threads in a vast tapestry. Roads for the gods. But Roman roads weren't only practical. They had a spiritual dimension too. At certain points along the road, you might come across a small shrine, a wayside altar, or a statue of Mercury, the god of travelers. Sometimes a simple stone, crowned with offerings, olive branches, coins, bits of bread. Travelers stopped, bowed their heads, whispered a prayer. Mercury, guide me. Keep me safe. Let my journey be smooth. Even emperors believed in the power of divine favor. They commissioned temples and placed inscriptions dedicating roads to gods and ancestors. So, every road was both a journey of earth and of spirit. Roads beyond Italy. As Rome expanded, so too did its roads. They built roads in Gaul, Hispania, Britannia, North Africa, the Balkans, and the Near East, more than 4 lakhs kilometers of roads altogether. Of those, nearly 80,000 kilometers were stone-paved highways, a vast network unparalleled until the modern age. In distant Britannia, where rains fell and mists clung to the hills, Roman roads cut like clean lines across the countryside. Names like Vartalind Street, Ermin Street, and Fossway still in use today began as Roman routes. Archaeologists still find stretches of them buried beneath modern roads, their layers of stone intact after 2000 years. In Syria, Turkey, and North Africa, in places where empires have risen and fallen, Roman paving stones still sleep under dust and sand, waiting to be remembered. Built to last. Why do these roads last? Because the Romans built not for today, but for forever. They overbuilt, laying deep foundations, sloping the roads to shade water, placing curbstones and drainage ditches to preserve integrity. They enforced maintenance. Local magistrates, military commanders, or wealthy citizens were made responsible for segments. Failure to maintain a road was a civic shame. Some emperors, like Trajan and Hadrian, prided themselves on expanding and repairing roads, adding their names to milestones as proof of stewardship. To build a road was to leave your mark on eternity. Footsteps in the dust. Let us pause for a moment now. The air is warm. The road stretches before you, sunlight dancing off pale paving stones. You can still feel the faint imprint of feet and hooves. See where carts once carved grooves. Smell the herbs growing along the ditches, thyme, lavender, rosemary. And if you listen, quietly, you can almost hear voices. Latin murmured in the wind. The low thud of sandals. The whisper of empire. All held together by a road. Stone by stone. Step by step. The wind changes slightly, cooler now as the sun begins to tilt westward. We are no longer walking with the mighty legions of Rome. The empire, as once it stood, is falling. And yet, the road remains. When Rome fell, the Roman Empire, with all its emperors and glories, began to crumble in the 4th and 5th centuries CE. Goths, Vandals, Huns, waves of invasion crashed upon Rome's borders. The Eternal City was sacked. Western provinces splintered. Authority faded into fog. But even in collapse, the roads stayed. Imagine a Roman road at dusk in 476 CE, the year Rome's last emperor was dethroned. The sun dips low. The air is still. No legion marches past. No envoy gallops by. But the stones are still there. Worn smooth. Silent. Unmoving. They do not mourn. They endure. The roads in the Middle Ages. As Europe entered the so-called Dark Ages, much knowledge was lost. Cities shrank. Trade slowed. Grand marble buildings fell to ruin. But the roads? People still used them. Monks walked them, bearing sacred texts from one monastery to another. Pilgrims trudged their lengths, heading toward Rome, Santiago, or Canterbury. Farmers led carts to market. Messengers galloped through forests. They no longer saw the roads as Roman, just as the best way to get there. And slowly, they became absorbed into medieval life. Some were renamed. Others partly vanished beneath grass and earth. But beneath it all, the skeleton of stone remained. How the roads guided new cities. Many modern cities grew not because of where rivers flowed or hills stood, but because a Roman road passed through. Towns popped up at crossroads. Inns and markets flourished. Where once there was just a Roman way station, there might now be a cathedral town. London, Paris, Lyon, Cologne, Milan, Barcelona all were linked by these roads. They weren't just footpaths. They were veins, carrying the lifeblood of civilization long after the empire's heart stopped beating. The road builders forgot, but the roads remembered. Even when the knowledge of how to build roads in the Roman way faded, the roads themselves whispered hints. Builders in later centuries, medieval stonemasons, Renaissance planners would sometimes dig into the earth and find an old Roman path. It would be straight, solid, and dry, even in rain. Better than ours, they would mutter. And so, many modern highways and railroads follow Roman routes, their curves and lines still shaping how we move today. From satellites, you can trace Roman roads beneath modern Europe, long, geometric scars etched in time. Rediscovered by scholars. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as archaeology emerged, scholars became fascinated by Rome's lost world. They followed old maps, walked dusty trails, dug beneath fields and found mile markers, drainage stones, curbstones fitted like puzzle pieces. Some wept to see them still intact. Artists painted them. Historians wrote about them. And travelers, like yourself, began to walk them again, not as roads of necessity, but of connection. To the past. To those who came before. Roads in the British Isles. Let us pause now in the green hills of Britain. Here, roads like Waterland Street and Ermine Street run straight across the countryside. The Romans arrived in Britannia in 43 CE and soon carved their trademark roads across the land. They built Londinium London and connected it to the rest of the island. To this day, some highways, like the A2 and A5, trace Roman lines. Modern tires roll where once marched the 10th Legion. Even under the concrete and traffic, if you listen closely, you can hear the ghosts of sandals. Roads in the east. Rome's reach extended far east into what is now Turkey, Syria, and the Levant. The city of Antioch, once called the Queen of the East, was a Roman jewel and its roads were arteries of both commerce and culture. Imagine walking through the ancient city of Jerash in Jordan, where Roman columns still stand. There, a street paved in Roman stone still runs straight as an arrow. You can walk it today. Your feet touching what Roman citizens once touched, their voices echoing faintly in your ears. And if you follow that road out of town, you'll find yourself walking through olive groves, beneath birdsong, surrounded by silence and sun. Why they still exist. So why have these roads lasted when palaces and statues did not? Because the Romans respected foundations. They built from the bottom up, not just to carry weight, but to endure time. They understood water, weight, wear, and weather. And they didn't rush. They spent years, even decades, completing a single stretch of road. To build a road was an offering to the future. A moment to pause. Now let us stop right here, at a bend in the road that hasn't changed in 2000 years. You sit beside a stone milestone. The sun is low. The light turns golden. Birds chirp softly. A breeze moves through the grasses. And the stones beneath you are still warm from the day. You close your eyes. And you realize something. You are connected not by blood, but by footsteps to millions of others who walked this way. From legionnaires in bronze to monks in woolen robes. From traders with donkeys to dreamers like you. The road remembers them all. And now, it remembers you. The road beneath your feet was not built by magic. It was built by hands calloused, blistered, patient hands. As we walk onward into the quiet evening, let us meet those who gave stone its shape. The men who made the Roman roads not just possible, but permanent. They remain, not in names or statues, but in every slab and curve. Who built the roads? The short answer: everyone Rome could command. But it wasn't always the same kind of labor. Roman roads were built by legionary soldiers, especially during times of peace. Slaves, often captured in war. Local workers, conscripted from conquered provinces. Skilled engineers from the Roman military corps. The Romans saw infrastructure not as separate from war, but part of it. A newly conquered land? First thing, build a road. So the legions could move quickly. So tax collectors could arrive. So control could flow outward, like blood through veins. Building a road was part of the conquest itself. The engineers. At the heart of every road project was an engineer often trained in the army or educated through the Roman schooling system. He was likely a Roman citizen, literate in Latin, trained in geometry, surveying, and materials. He would carry a wax tablet and stylus, a measuring rod, and above all, a grommet, the surveying tool we met earlier. Each day, he walked the future path, checking alignments, planning bridges, ordering materials. He was the quiet mind behind the loud labor. Some engineers became famous like Vitruvius, whose books influenced architecture for centuries. But most remained unknown. And yet, their designs live on in every bendless mile. The workers. Now imagine the work site. Hundreds of men bent backs, sweat-streaked faces, steady rhythm. Some dig with picks, clearing the fossa. Others haul baskets of gravel, tip them into trenches. A line of men hammer stones into shape, while others kneel to fit each block, tapping it into place with mallets. Someone sings. Someone laughs. Someone wipes blood from his palm. They work from dawn until dusk. The overseer blows a horn to signal breaks. A bucket of water is passed around. There is no machinery. Only muscle. Only will. The tools. What did they use? Roman road builders had no trucks or cranes. But they had picks and mattocks for digging. Wooden shovels. Baskets and sleds for carrying stone. Hammers and chisels to shape blocks. Levers and pulleys to move large slabs. Plumbobs and grommets for alignment. Their strength was not in speed, but in discipline and design. Even their shovels were crafted with care, the wood shaped to reduce splinters, the handles smoothed by time and sweat. A day in the life. Let's imagine one such worker. His name is Lucius. He is a freedman, once a slave, now earning coin as a skilled laborer. He wakes before sunrise in a small wooden hut. His wife hands him bread and olive paste. His son sleeps under a blanket made of wool. Lucius walks to the worksite as the sky turns purple and gold. He reports to the overseer. Today, he's on the rudest layer spreading crushed stone and lime. By midday, his arms ache. But the work has rhythm. He knows the measure of each shovelful. He listens for the sound of the stones as they settle. The right sound means they're compacting well. At dusk, the sun casts long shadows across the half-finished road. Lucius runs his fingers across the surface, smooth, level. Good work. He walks home, eats lentils, sleeps beside his family. Tomorrow, he'll return. Because the road must stretch farther still. Women and the roads. While Roman road construction was largely a male domain, women weren't absent from the story. In Roman towns, women ran inns and rest stops, managing the mansions that lined major roads. They cooked, cleaned, managed supplies, and offered shelter to travelers. We find tomb inscriptions dedicated to such women. To Palavia, keeper of the station at mile 63. Beloved wife. She welcomed all with warmth. In rural areas, wives of soldiers sometimes followed legions and camped near roadworks. They cooked for the workers, raised children in tents and shacks along the roadside. The roads were theirs, too, not by hands, but by hearts. Maintaining the roads. Building the road was just the beginning. Maintenance was constant. Small teams, often slaves or low-ranking soldiers, were assigned to patrol roads, repairing cracks, resetting stones, clearing ditches. There was even a Roman title, Curator Viarum, the official in charge of road upkeep in a given region. To neglect a road was a civic disgrace. To repair one was a gift to the gods. Imagine a lone worker decades later, kneeling to fit a stone that has come loose. The road stretches silent around him. But he doesn't feel alone. He is part of the same story. Roads and identity. For many Romans, especially soldiers, the roads were more than infrastructure. They were symbols of what it meant to be Roman. To walk on a Roman road was to walk on order. To feel underfoot the reach of law, the presence of the emperor, the unity of the state. Even far from Rome, a paved road told you, you are not in the wilderness. You are in civilization. And so, they marched, and built, and walked. And every stone they laid whispered the same truth. Rome is here. Night is falling now. The sun has sunk behind the hills, casting long shadows across the old Roman road. The stones beneath your feet are cooling. The air is soft with the scent of pine and distant smoke. And still, the road continues. But now, we step into the present. And look back not with awe alone, but with recognition. The roads that remain. Today, many Roman roads still exist. Not as ruins. Not as museum pieces. But as living paths, traveled daily by cars, buses, bicycles, and walking feet. Some are still paved with original stones. In Italy, you can walk the Via Appia Antica, just outside Rome. Pine trees line its sides. Tombs and milestones stand like quiet sentinels. The same stones that bore legionnaires now feel the tread of tourists and locals alike. In France, the Via Domitia still crosses the Languedoc region. In England, the Fossway and Stane Street run beneath modern highways. In Syria, Turkey, and Tunisia, fragments remain, tucked behind villages, lying forgotten beneath olive groves. And sometimes, unknowingly, we drive on Roman roads repaved a dozen times but following the same path carved 2000 years ago. What has been lost? But not all roads remain. Some were buried by time, forgotten beneath layers of soil, forest, or urban sprawl. Others were quarried, their stones stolen for medieval castles or Renaissance churches. Many vanished when empires fell, when the need for connection was replaced by fragmentation. Still others were left to ruin, neglected by those who forgot how to care for them. And yet, even when broken, they echo. A fragment here. A milestone there. A section of curb beneath a vineyard. They are fossils of intention, traces of a people who believed the future would come, and would need a way to walk. Lessons from the stones. So what can we learn, dear listener, from these ancient roads? Not just about construction or empire, but about time. The Roman road is a reminder that what we build matters. That intention, effort, and craftsmanship can outlast us. That to shape the earth carefully is an act of hope even when we do not live to see its fulfillment. Each road was built by men who would never walk its full length. They laid stones for travelers unborn. For footsteps they would never hear. And now perhaps one of those footsteps is yours. Walking in their footsteps. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself walking the Via Appia at dawn. The stones are cold beneath your soles. Cypress trees sway gently in the breeze. A lizard darts across the path. And in the distance, the faint outline of Rome glows golden in the light. You pass a milestone carved by Hadrian's men. You place your hand on it, feeling its time-worn face. You are one among millions. But the stone remembers every touch. A living legacy. More than stone, Roman roads left behind ideas. That movement is power. That infrastructure is civilization. That roads connect not just places, but people. Even today, we trace our cities, our borders, our cultures along the same lines Rome drew. We may not use grommets or wear togas, but we are heirs to the same principles. Order, design, permanence. In a world that often feels fleeting, the Roman road whispers a reminder. Some things can last. Dreaming of the road. Now, let your mind drift. The road stretches ahead endless, winding through hills and valleys, cities and ruins. You see torches in the night, carried by travelers long gone. You hear distant hoofbeats, the rustle of a cart, the soft prayers of a pilgrim, the weary laughter of a worker, the measured tread of a soldier's boot. And through it all, the road hums beneath them. Silent, steady. The same road you walk now. The same stones beneath your feet. A final blessing. As we reach the end of our journey tonight, I offer you this thought. Wherever you walk, whether on pavement, gravel, earth, or stone, you walk not alone. You walk upon layers of history. You are part of a story greater than any one person. A story of hands that built, of feet that journeyed, of roads that endured. And in that, there is peace. So rest now, dear traveler. Let the echo of Roman footsteps lull you to sleep. May the stones be smooth, the stars be kind, and the road ahead always waiting, always ready guide you home. Good night.